Hello and welcome to Theta Sigma's Doctor Who podcast number 50. This week, my own personal 50th show celebrations, your feedback on the podcast so far, and then on last week's show, and the companion who set the standard for all the others to follow. So can it really be episode 50 this week? Well yes, apparently it can, as that's what it is, but it's hard to believe that it's just over a year ago that I started the show, and never in a million years thought that I'd still be going a little over 12 months later. Now I know the mathematicians amongst you will be saying to yourselves, how can the show have been going for over a year when there's only episode 50? Well, the truth is I took a 2-week break over last Christmas, and that's where those 2 missing episodes are. Over the last couple of days I've been listening back to the early shows, which may sound a very self-indulgent thing to do, but I was intrigued to hear how the show has developed since its inception. In the very first show I did point out that Theta Sigma's Doctor Who podcast would evolve how it evolves. I promised reviews of DVDs and Big Finish audios, but not how regularly I would be recording the show. Of course I've managed the odd review of Big Finish output, very odd listening back to some of those, yet I've never reviewed any DVDs. 2 reasons for that. Firstly, time. Like many people out there, I have a full-time job and I produce the show in my own time and for the love of doing it, and finding time to watch complete DVDs isn't easy. Secondly, there's a number of very good Doctor Who podcasts out there that already do DVD reviews, and I wanted to do something that was a little bit different. Realising that there are fewer podcasts doing the Big Finish reviews, I thought that might be a way to go. And judging from the responses I've had when I've done them, it seems like you like hearing my thoughts on them too. The other thing is that I can carry my Big Finish audios on my iPad and listen to them while I'm doing other things. As the show went on, one of the things I realised was that no other podcast was doing, at least not as far as I know, was looking at the show character by character. With this in mind, and a veritable plethora of characters to work my way through, I started to look at the actors and characters that play in no particular order through the series. Of course, some have been in series form, the Doctor and the Master for obvious reasons, and others have been of one-offs. But the journey has continued, and I've loved finding out all about the people who've brought the show to life on screen for us, and in audio, and that's the way the show has evolved, and for the foreseeable future at least will continue to go. With that in mind, I've had a couple of messages recently asking me to explore some things other than the show's characters. So in the coming weeks we'll be making a departure from what has become the norm to look at these. Stay tuned to find out what they are. To celebrate the show's 50th edition, I've also recreated my voiceover theme, The Voices of Regenerations. So sit back and enjoy a brief history of television's best-loved show from Hartnell to Capaldi in theme and voice.
One day I shall come back. Yes, I shall come back. Until then, there must be no regrets, no tears, no anxieties. Just go forward in all your beliefs and prove to me that I am not mistaken in mine. No, they call me the Doctor.
Yes, it's quite crazy, isn't it? Oh, you can get used to it, old chap. Relative dimensions and all that. What do you think of my new face, by the way? I wasn't too sure about it myself to begin with. It sort of grows on you.
Let's touch these 2 strands together. And the Daleks are finished. Have I that right? Welcome aboard. I'm the Doctor. Or will be if this regeneration works out.
A man is the sum of his memories, you know, a Time Lord even more so.
Strange, my dear. And it seems on a moment too soon.
I am Lord President of Gallifrey. You can't put me on trial.
I'm the Doctor. I am far more than just another Time Lord.
This species has an amazing capacity for self-deception, matched only by its ingenuity when trying to destroy itself.
I don't think you realize what you're dealing with here.
It isn't even remotely human.
I am the Doctor!
Great men are forged in fire. It is the privilege of lesser men to light the flame.
I don't need to make claims, I know how good I am.
Oh, Louis, you're a clever man. I call you a genius, except I'm the room.
Kidneys! I've got new kidneys! I don't like the colour.
Of your kidneys? What's happening?
We're probably catching. Oh!
It's a what?
Stay calm. Just one question. Do you happen to know how to fly this thing?
I asked on the Facebook page for people's views of the show so far, and here's what you said. Carl Triggs from the Facebook page Don't Blink, and if you're not a Page fan over there yet, why not? They're awesome and great friends to the show. Get over there and like them and have a look around at a top Doctor Who page. Carl said, amazing, one of the best podcasts out there. My only criticism is that there aren't enough people listening to it and realising how good it is. Wow, I'm flattered, and thanks Carl for that glowing feedback. Michael Doyle also commented on the show saying, all I can say is keep it up. Thanks both, and to be fair to those who've inboxed me saying how much they like the show, and for offers of help promoting it as well. You're all amazing people, without whom the show would not only not be worth doing, but it simply wouldn't survive. Thank you, all.
Come here, you scrumptious little beauty.
A box?
Doctor, what is it?
I've got mail.
Feeding back on last week's show where we showcased Polly and the lovely Annika Wills, Michael Doyle said, although I've seen the War Machines, it was a long time ago, and I don't remember anything about the episode other than Wotan calling the Doctor Doctor Who, which I will say reminded me a bit of how it was said by Handels in the time of the Doctor when he translated the message coming through the crack. I wonder if that was done on purpose or just one of those things. At any rate, I don't remember too much of Polly or Ben. It's a sad reminder of how many episodes are missing. I do know that they've released the Moonbase, but I haven't picked it up yet. I'm tired of them releasing DVDs, me getting it, and then they release a special edition a few months later. So now I'm waiting till the special editions come out. I think that between the loss of the episodes and their time with the Doctor coming after such strong characters like the original companions and then Stephen and Vicky, and then being replaced by Jamie and Victoria and Zoe, I feel Polly and Ben have been kind of lost in the minds of the fans, even with the additional mentions and short stories and audio, because the fans don't really have much they can look at and remember, and I think that's a shame. Of course, the same is true of other companions like Katarina, Sarah Kingdom and Dodo. It's nice though that there are still fans like you who do their best to keep them in the fans' minds. Thanks for that. Thanks, Michael, and it's my intention at some point in the future to look at more of the characters that you talk about in your feedback, so watch this space. Or to be technically correct, listen to this space. And now on to today's subject matter. I have to say that it's a complete coincidence that we're looking at Susan Forman in today's show. But what better character to be looking at to mark the show's 50th episode than the very first companion, the Doctor's granddaughter, Susan.
Look, I love your school. I love England in the 20th century. The last 5 months have been the happiest of my life.
Carol Ann Ford was born on the 16th of June 1940 and is the British actress best known for her role as Susan Forman in Doctor Who, and as Bettina in the 1962 film adaptation of The Day of the Triffids. Ford has had a long and diverse acting career, her theatrical work including many comedies, dramas and musicals, including The Jungle Book, Stranger in the House, Bakerloo to Paradise, The Owl and the Pussycat, The Rumpus, Pride and Prejudice, Inadmissible Evidence, Enrico, Espresso Bongo, Sleeping Beauty, You Can Never Tell, Ned Kelly, Mother, Macbeth, The Boyfriend, Have You Seen Manchester and Private Lives. Her film appearances include Sarah, about the life of French actress Sarah Bernhardt, The Hiding Place, The Great St Trinian's Train Robbery and Mix Me a Person. In addition to Doctor Who, her television appearances include Suspense, Whatever Happened to the Likely Lads, Public Eye, Emergency Ward 10, Attorney General, Moonstrike, Compact, Probation Officer and Dial M for Murder. And Ford has also appeared on Jukebox Jury and various quiz shows, and has performed a number of voiceovers and voice dubs. According to the documentary Doctor Who Origins, an appearance on Z-Cars prompted Ford's screen test for the role of Susan in 1963. Playing the granddaughter of the Doctor, Ford was one of the 3 original companions to accompany William Hartnell's Time Lord. According to Ford, Susan was originally intended to be a character similar to those in the Avengers, with telepathic abilities, as well as the skills to fly the TARDIS, but in the series she was made to be far more ordinary. Her character departed from the series at the conclusion of the 1964 serial Dalek Invasion of Earth, but returned briefly for both the series' 20th anniversary TV special The Five Doctors and the 30th anniversary special Dimensions in Time. She also appears as a different character in the independent Doctor Who spin-off Shakedown Return of the Sontarans in 1995. Ford mostly stopped acting following an illness in 1977, which led to a dramatic weight reduction and the loss of her voice, and has since taught voice presentation skills and dialogue coaching to politicians, business people, after-dinner speakers and actors. Since the turn of the millennium, however, she has made a limited return to the profession, reprising the role of Susan in a number of Big Finish Doctor Who audio plays, some of which have been broadcast on BBC Radio. 3 of these stories feature the Doctor, starting with the subscription-only release An Earthly Child, in which her character is reunited with Paul McGann's 8th Doctor, followed by Relative Dimensions and Lucy Miller. She was played by Claudia Grant in the BBC Two docudrama An Adventure in Space and Time, and Ford herself appeared in a small role as a character named Joyce. In November 2013 she then appeared in the one-off 50th anniversary comedy homage The Five-ish Doctors reboot.
I was born in another time, another world.
But what of Susan herself? The granddaughter and original companion to the first Doctor, Susan appeared in the show's very first season and the first 2 stories of the second season. Including the 5 Doctors and Dimensions in Time, Susan appeared in 10 stories totalling 51 episodes. She's introduced in the first story, An Unearthly Child, with the first episode focusing on her as an unusual teenager with an advanced knowledge of history and science. This catches the attention of her teachers at Coal Hill School, Ian and Barbara, who follow her home to a junkyard. It's revealed that she and her grandfather, the Doctor, are exiles from their own people in another time and another world. And they've been travelling through space and time in a machine that she has named the TARDIS, from the acronym Time and Relative Dimension in Space. As Ian and Barbara have found out what the TARDIS is and about the Doctor, he whisks them away in the TARDIS against their will. Through the run of the series, it's learned that the Doctor, aided by Susan, has stolen the TARDIS. Susan continued to travel with the Doctor and her two teachers until the 1964 serial The Dalek Invasion of Earth. During the events of that story, she falls in love with David Campbell, a young freedom fighter from the 22nd century. However, Susan feels that she has to stay with and take care of her grandfather. The Doctor, realising that Susan is now a grown woman and deserves a future away from him, locks her out of the TARDIS and leaves after a tearful farewell. In The Curse of Fenric in 1989, the Seventh Doctor states that he doesn't know if he has any family, which may indicate his uncertainty of Susan's whereabouts. In 2005's The End of the World, the Ninth Doctor states that his homeworld has been destroyed and that he is the last of the Time Lords. Although Susan isn't mentioned by name, the Doctor says in Father's Day that his whole family died. And in The Empty Child, a character remarks that he has been a father and grandfather, but no more, and the Ninth Doctor replies, "I know the feeling." In the 2013 episode The Rings of Akatan, the 11th Doctor mentions that he travelled with his granddaughter to the planet Akatan, and later in the same series, Journey to the Centre of the TARDIS, has audio from the scene in An Unearthly Child, where Susan explains how she names the TARDIS. A brief glimpse of Susan, played by an unidentified body double, is seen in the opening scene of The Name of the Doctor, which depicts the Doctor and Susan leaving Gallifrey in the TARDIS. Susan's character has been mentioned in spin-off media as well. In 1983, Doctor Who's then script editor Eric Saywood wrote a short story dealing with the Doctor's departure from Gallifrey for the Radio Times Doctor Who 20th Anniversary special. This story, Birth of a Renegade, depicts Susan as a descendant of Rassilon and the last surviving member of Gallifrey's royal family, unrelated to the Doctor. A later script editor, Andrew Cartmel, had another explanation of Susan's origins. This account, part of the Cartmel master plan, was not used in the programme, but was used as a background for several of the Virgin New Adventures novels, most notably Lungbarrow by Mark Platt. In this version of events, Susan is the granddaughter of the mysterious Gallifreyan founder known as the Other, who may have been reincarnated as the Doctor. The Doctor had travelled back to the dawn of Time Lord civilization and rescued Susan, who recognised him as her grandfather. The Doctor didn't initially recognise her, but knew that this was somehow true. The character has also appeared in several novels. She makes a cameo appearance in the New Adventures novel All-Consuming Fire, and stars in the Virgin Missing Adventures novel The Sorcerer's Apprentice. She appears in 3 past Doctor Adventures novels set within her time on the television programme: The Witch Hunters, City at World's End, and The Time Travellers. The latter gives an explanation as for why the Doctor left Susan. During the events of that novel, the Doctor becomes involved with the British Army's time travel experiments, which risk him being noticed by the Time Lords. He then resolves to begin looking for a place where Susan can be safe and content, so that if he is ever apprehended by the Time Lords, she will still be free. Susan reappears in the 8th Doctor Adventures novel Legacy of the Daleks by John Peel, which takes place after the events of the Dalek invasion of Earth. At the end of that novel, Susan comes into possession of the Master's TARDIS after he tries to capture her, and is once again able to roam about in time and space. In the Telos novella Frayed, which takes place prior to the serial An Unearthly Child, Susan's name was given to her from a young girl in a besieged human medical facility on another planet after the girl's mother. The Telos novella Time and Relative takes place just prior to An Unearthly Child and involves Susan and several of her classmates from Coal Hill School trying to survive an alien invasion of Earth by a race of ice beings simply called the Cold, and at the same time trying to convince the Doctor to stop the attack. Susan also appears in the Companion Chronicles audio drama series from Big Finish. Quinnis takes place before the television series, when the Doctor and Susan were travelling alone. In the Big Finish bonus release An Earthly Child, Susan is reunited with the 8th Doctor and has a son named Alex. She subsequently appears in the Eighth Doctor adventures in Relative Dimensions, Lucy Miller and To the Death. Carol Ann Ford also played an alternate version of Susan in Big Finish's Doctor Who Unbound audio plays Old Morality and A Storm of Angels, in which Susan has become President of Gallifrey. In the Doctor Who Unbound play Exile, an alternative Doctor, whose latest regeneration was female, settles on Earth in 2003, using the identity and 1963 school records of a Susan Forman. In addition, the character of Susan appears in the two Peter Cushing films, Doctor Who and the Daleks in 1965 and Daleks Invasion Earth 2150 AD in 1966, portrayed by Roberta Tovey and appearing much younger than the television version of the character. Susan was the first on-screen companion of the Doctor, though actress Carol Ann Ford felt that the relationship was different than later characters who'd been branded as companions because she was also the Doctor's granddaughter. The original outline for the series didn't intend the pair to be related, but writer Anthony Coburn created the family tie. According to founding producer Verity Lambert, Coburn felt there was something not quite proper about an old man travelling around the galaxy with a young girl for a companion. The unaired pilot gave a different and more specific background to Susan and the Doctor, with their dialogue explaining that they came from the 49th century. Ford recalled that she was told Susan would be an Avengers-type girl with all that would entail, and she would have telepathic powers. She was going to be able to fly the TARDIS as well as her grandfather, and have the most extraordinary wardrobe. However, none of this appeared as the character was decided to become more of an ordinary teenager, which would give youngsters watching the show someone to identify with. Ford stated that little background information on Susan's character or history was provided to her by the production team, and so to inform her performance she would often discuss and invent ideas with co-star William Hartnell about Susan. They established that Susan had done something to annoy the other Time Lords, which caused her and the Doctor's exile. Ford also points out that suggestions that Susan was not the Doctor's natural granddaughter were only first put forward in the 1990s. However, in 2013, she revealed that the producers had initially insisted that Susan would not refer to the Doctor as her grandfather in the Five Doctors special. They said, "We don't really want people to perceive him as having had sex with someone to father a child." Ford apparently turned round and said, "I just screamed with hysterical laughter and said, 'In that case, I'm not doing it.'" And the script was subsequently changed to include mentions of the characters' relationship.
Oh, goodbye, my dear chap. I must say I've had the time of my lives.
And that's it for this 50th show. Thank you for listening and for all your continued support over the last year, and here's to the next 50 episodes. Next week we start a new miniseries looking at some of the companion characters from the new era of the show, starting with Donna Noble.
Alright, Emperor of the Arachnos, do I look bothered? Look, spider's face, bothered, Arachnos, I ain't bothered. Rubbish in this TARDIS.
Thank you for listening to Theta Sigma's Doctor Who podcast. Doctor Who and its associated shows are all copyright and property of the BBC, and no infringement is intended.